Hola amigos, and welcome to part one of my video, what I wish they told me before I moved here to Puerto Vallarta. I'm going to do this video in two parts because it's pretty long, so part two will be upcoming shortly, so watch out for that part two soon. Today I thought I would talk to you about some issues, for want of a better word, that you may encounter or experience in Puerto Vallarta that I wish someone had told me about before I moved here. Now don't get me wrong, these are things that would never ever have put me off living here in Puerto Vallarta, and they still don't bother me a whole lot. So I hope it won't put you off living here, because the great things about Puerto Vallarta way outweigh these. Some of these issues I did learn the hard way though, or by trial and error. So I'll not only tell you about these issues today, but I'll also offer you tips on the ways to prepare for them, whether you're visiting or planning on living here, and it'll hopefully shorten your learning curve and you'll know what to expect before you even get off the plane. On most of these issues I'll offer tips and solutions, and on some of the other issues, well, it's just a case of it is what it is. So before I get into these tips, I want to remind you, if this is your first time on my channel, please give my video a like and subscribe to my channel below so you can be the first to learn about the current market here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I get calls and emails every day and I love it. So if you're thinking about moving to Puerto Vallarta, whether that's in 9 days, 90 days, or even 9 months, please feel free to call, email, or text me, and the information is below. And I'll be happy to help you to make that smooth move to Puerto Vallarta. I also have a link below to my free Puerto Vallarta Mexico Real Estate Buyer's Guide. Now this guide will walk you through the real estate buying process in Puerto Vallarta. So click on that and grab your free guide. So let's get after it. All right, here are some, perhaps to some people, annoying issues of living in or when visiting Puerto Vallarta. And hey, stick around till the end of the video, because the last tip I'll give you, you'll really want to know about. So let's start with this. You've just arrived in Puerto Vallarta and you've worked your way through the customs and immigration at the airport, and now you're walking out to find transportation to your hotel or to that new condo that I hopefully helped you purchase. You exit the automatic sliding doors after customs and you enter what are obviously still secure parts of the airport, with counters around the sides, uniformed attendants, and other official looking people wearing badges with their picture. They will immediately try to usher you towards the counters on some pretext. You've now entered what's known as the Shark Tank. This is Timeshare Sharksville. Now if you want to waste 20 minutes there arranging a timeshare viewing, which is never less than 4 hours of high pressure sales for a free breakfast and a discount on some tours, go right ahead and let them lead you away. If on the other hand this doesn't sit well with you, put your head down and get out of there through the automatic sliding doors to your left as fast as you can, and don't make eye contact with any of them. By the way, one of the latest scams they use is that they look outside into the lobby where there are people holding those, you know, those signs with your name on them, if you've arranged to be picked up, and then shout that name out to the passing crowd and pretend to be the people you arranged to be picked up by. So be prepared that anyone you pre-arranged to pick up with will be in the lobby, not in the Shark Tank. So here's your tip number one: head down, no eye contact, and get out of that Shark Tank as fast as you can. All right, this takes us to number two, taxis. So you make it through without being timeshare scammed, and you're out in the airport lobby looking for a taxi. There are legit people there who will ask if you want a taxi and ask your destination. Always ask what the fare will be first. This also goes for any time you take a taxi anywhere in Puerto Vallarta. Taxis don't have meters, so you need to ask what the fare will be to your destination. Repeat the amount to the driver and have him or her repeat it back to you to confirm the exact amount. So this is tip number two. Ask how much the fare is up front, always. Now, I never take taxis. I only use Uber, and Uber is terrific here in Puerto Vallarta. Uber is by far way cheaper than taxis. From my condo to the downtown area is about a half an hour drive, maybe 40 minutes. An Uber for that trip will cost me around 120 pesos, which is around $6. Crazy inexpensive. If you don't want to deal with getting a taxi from the airport, you can get an Uber as well. The only issue with that is that they don't allow Uber in the airport. So here's what us locals do. Tip number 3 coming your way. When you exit the doors of the airport, take a left and walk to the end of the building. Take a left again and you'll see a covered walkway bridge over the highway. It's a pedestrian bridge. Cross over the walkway bridge to the other side of the road where you'll see people milling about and waiting there for their rides. And that area there is where the Uber will come and pick you up. Getting back to the timeshare thing, you not only get the solicitors at the airport, you'll also encounter them around the town. Mostly in the downtown area of Zona Romantica and along the Malacon and Centro. Some are disguised as tequila testing booths, and as you amble down the Malacon, you'll be approached to taste some free tequila. Now, you won't end up in Bombay after drinking a lot of tequila shots like Robin Williams, but you might well end up signing up for a tour of a timeshare that'll take a half a day of your vacation. So tip number 4, keep walking and buy yourself a tequila at any of the great bars along the Malacon. I know everyone has to make a living, and Mexican people are really hardworking people. So some solicitors are not out to scam you and are generally trying to make a living by selling their wares on the street and on the beaches. In one way, I think it's cool that the restaurants and beach clubs don't stop vendors from making their living by driving them off. But it is also one of the things that is annoying sometimes. The constant barrage of vendors on the beach does get to you, and it's non-stop. And the beach club no vendor signs are there for the beachgoers' benefit. It's not really enforced. If you're like me, you want to relax and unwind on the beach, enjoy the sunshine and the sunbathing, the last thing you need is someone coming up to you every 10 seconds and trying to get you to buy stuff. Some are persistent, most are not, and sometimes I do buy something from them, but mostly I want to be left alone to relax. So tip number 4 is you will see the vendors coming. So decide if it's something you want to look at, and if not, it's polite to say no gracias for the 100th time. Even though you may be annoyed, remember, they're just trying to make their living. So no tip here, it just is what it is, and it's part of the culture. So next up is driving in Puerto Vallarta. It took me a while to get used to driving in Mexico, particularly in Puerto Vallarta. Here are a couple of things no one told me before I came here about drivers and driving in PV. If you're from the States or Canada, then you know how strictly the rules of the road are enforced there. That's not so much the case in Puerto Vallarta. I think it's because there isn't a cop hiding behind every tree waiting for you to commit a traffic violation, whether by mistake or on purpose. Don't get me wrong, sooner or later you will get pulled over here, and how you deal with that is a discussion for another video. Take four-way stops, for example. I just see motorists sail right through them here, usually because you can see what's coming, what vehicles are coming from the other direction. If nothing's coming, just keep on driving, especially at junctions that are not that busy. At the busy intersections, drivers do tend to observe the uno y uno, one-on-one signs, the four-way stop. Most intersections downtown don't have traffic lights, so it really comes down to the driver's perception of who has the right of way. When I started driving here, I was white-knuckled and braking at almost every downtown intersection. But over time I learned that certain streets are considered the main streets in and out of downtown area, so those are perceived as right-of-way streets, and drivers coming onto those streets stop even though there are no signs of any kind. So basically over time you get the lay of the land, and like me, you'll be sailing through intersections you know are on the main streets and stopping at the ones you know are not. No more white knuckling and stopping constantly, but always keeping a wary eye out for drivers who are not hip to it yet. The next one used to be one of my major frustrations when I started driving in Puerto Vallarta. This applies to most parts of Mexico too. And that is that the concept of the left lane being used for overtaking or passing slower vehicles is not one that Mexican drivers seem to subscribe to. So tip number 5, here if you have to be somewhere at a fixed time, allow yourself plenty of time and leave 15 minutes before you normally would, because when you're behind two cars side by side in front of you, you're not going anywhere fast. Even though the majority of Mexican people are friendly and kind, many turn into Mr. Hyde when they get behind the wheel of a car. I've noticed some are not entirely courteous, to say the least. That's not to say I've never encountered a courteous driver, because I have encountered many. Try merging into a lane of traffic where maybe roadworks have closed off a lane ahead. Some drivers will almost hit you rather than give an inch. Another one is you may be sitting 20 cars back waiting for a light change, and the second it turns green, way up ahead, the guy in the car behind you is honking at you. That one always gives me a good chuckle. So tip number 6, just chill. You'll all get there in the end, and probably on time. If you ever get in a fender bender or a more serious accident here, and especially if you don't speak Spanish, you might find yourself in hot water with the policia. So a real important tip number 7, get yourself a dash cam. They're cheap and I would say essential for driving in Mexico. I have one in my car. Look up Nexar dash cams. They are inexpensive and there's no monthly charge. It works with a phone app and saves video on a chip in the camera as well, and on your phone app. Let's talk about gas stations and filling your car up with gas. Chances are you've heard about this hustle before. In most gas stations in Mexico, there'll be an attendant who pumps your gas because it's almost always full service. Again, most station attendants are honest, but here's tip number 8. When you pull up to get your gas, watch the attendant after you tell them how much gas you need and make 100% sure that he or she turns the pump to 0. Some have been known to start pumping gas with a peso amount already on the pump, and you end up paying for gas you didn't get. It hasn't happened to me, but I always make sure they see me watching the pump when they reset it. And mostly the honest attendants will direct your attention to the fact that they have set the pump to 0. Okay, next up, let's talk about bugs. In a tropical climate like Puerto Vallarta, you're going to get bugs. Living in a condo on the 4th floor, I don't get a lot of bugs, but I imagine on the ground floor or in a regular house, you might see more. Compared to when I lived in Yucatan over on the east side of Mexico though, there seems to be a lot less bugs here in Puerto Vallarta than over there. The ones that bug me the most, pardon the pun, cockroaches. Having lived a good portion of my life in a colder climate, I never really encountered them that much, but man, do I hate those suckers. And here they're gigantic. I mean, they're like this big. Ouch. I believe they can fly too. Even though cockroaches are essential to nutrient life on the planet, they also can carry bacteria, so I stay clear of them. I mentioned I live on the 4th floor, so I've only seen a couple in my condo, or on maybe 2 occasions. I wondered how they got into my apartment in the first place, and the neighbor told me that they come up through the drains in your shower or sink. So here's tip number 9. Get yourself several of these puppies. They're called drain covers, and put one in all the showers in your house or condo, and get one of these for your sink. Roaches hate peppermint and also eucalyptus oil, so spray some of those around your house too, and that'll keep them at bay. If you do see cockroaches, don't panic though, you'll be fine, despite your urge to burn the house down. We also have ants here, and I see them regularly, but mostly outside on the paths and walkways of my condo development. Usually just going about their business and being harmless enough. If they do get in your home or condos, just spray some of that peppermint or eucalyptus oil, or even tea tree oil. That should keep them outside. Mosquitoes are common here too, particularly during the summer rainy season when it's most humid. I have to say though that I have experienced more concentration of mosquitoes in other parts of Mexico compared to Puerto Vallarta. So tip number 10, wear long pants, or spray your legs and arms with a repellent in the evening when heading to the beach to watch that sunset. You do want to protect yourself, as there have been some cases of dengue fever here for mosquito bites. And believe me, you don't want to get that, even though the chances are slim. Okay, enough about bugs, you'll be happy to hear. I'm not sure you can hear that, but it's pretty cool. You hear that? That's the cruise ship calling passengers back to the ship from downtown or wherever they went. Anyway, so to round out part 1 of my videos, somebody should have told me before I moved here. I want to tell you about an issue that's probably more important to know about than any other that I've talked about here, and that is pickpocket teams. Although not as prevalent as in some European countries, there are some malefactors in Puerto Vallarta who have different pickpocket scams to relieve you of your wallet, phone or purse. One common scam, and this actually did happen to me as I walked through a local mall here with my sister who was visiting me from Ireland, where this woman came up behind me and tapped me on the shoulder, and when I turned around she held up a key and claimed that I had dropped it. Well, my sister and I were focused on that and explaining that it wasn't my key that she was showing me. The second woman who was with her stood away to her left, close to my sister's shoulder bag, Fortunately, my sister was smart enough to cling tightly to the bag and had it covered by her arm, so her accomplice couldn't reach into it. Alarm bells went off with me immediately and I figured out what was going on, so I kept looking back and forth at both women, so my attention wasn't solely focused on the one woman holding the key in my face. I told them I knew what they were at and to get the hell away from us or I'd start shouting for the cops. Well, you know, they split real fast. Another common scam is usually performed in a supermarket or store where one perpetrator will come up behind you and squirt ketchup or mustard on your clothes, which you won't see them do, and then with their accomplice will point out that you have this mess on the back of your shirt or top and pretend to help you clean it off. And when that's going on, your wallet or phone is lifted. So tip number 11 is obviously be aware of these scams to distract you. Always keep your wallet or phone in the front pocket, not in the back pocket of your jeans. If a stranger or a couple gets too close to you and tries to talk to you or distract you in any way with whatever ploy, your antenna should go up immediately. And although it might seem like they're being friendly, they're most likely up to no good. And they're in the process of trying to relieve you of your money or valuables. Okay, so that's it for part 1, and I hope you learned some things that I wish I knew before I came to live in Puerto Vallarta. Again, none of these things, had I known them in advance, would have put me off living in beautiful Puerto Vallarta, and it's likely that most of these issues exist where you're currently living. I hope you enjoyed it, and look out for part 2 coming at you real soon. Hasta luego!